Here's an important and interesting dynamic that we just learned about the COVID relief negotiations. Jeff Stein from Washington Post tells us this. Breaking, White House aides intervened Thursday to prevent President Trump from demanding Congress approve checks of $2,000 per person, sources say. Trump told allies he wants at least $1,200 and as much as $2,000. Aides told Trump his demands could blow up talks. That's amazing. Donald Trump really doesn't understand the immense power that he has. Because, no, that wouldn't have blown up negotiations. It wouldn't have blown up negotiations at all. What it would have done is forced the hand of a certain number of Republicans to agree with him. Because even though Trump just lost the general election, he's actually by far and away the most popular Republican figure in the entire country. So let me break this down for you because, I mean, it's one of those stories where it's like, what could have been if this guy was smarter? If he was smarter, we could have seen some incredible things over the past 4 years. So Trump's top advisors, Trump's top aides, a lot of them are the hardcore Kool-Aid drinking Ayn Rand types, the anarcho-capitalist types, the, Milton Friedman types, where they think you always want to cut taxes for the wealthy, you always want to deregulate the economy, you never want to use the power of the government to help the little guy economically. So they're probably against original stimulus checks, like that's the kind of people that Trump has surrounded himself with. Used to be Larry Kudlow. I think it still is Larry Kudlow, actually, to some extent. He's got Steve Mnuchin, the Goldman Sachs guys who are around him, Gary Cohn, who was around him. So he was really surrounded by neocons and trickle-downers, okay? So, but what Trump understands that they don't is he has the instinct on how to get a crowd behind him. And so what he knows is, okay, we have a pandemic and the economy's not doing well, even though he pretends it's doing well. He knows it's not really doing that well. So he thinks, what do people need? They need money, which is why the last round of stimulus talks, remember, he was adamant that he wanted his name on the checks. Now, what happened? I thought the Republicans think like, oh, we don't want the government to send people checks. That breeds dependence and laziness, and that's bad. We want a free market. We don't want big government. Trump was like, ideology, schmideology. I don't care about that at all. I want to get elected. This is how I'd get elected. Put my name on a check and send it to people. Right? So that's what he was thinking. So here we are now with these negotiations going on for stimulus checks, for a big relief bill. The Democrats were the ones who were asking for more money in stimulus checks. Every single Democrat was for those $1,200 checks, and only one Republican was, Josh Hawley. Okay? If Donald Trump got directly involved in the negotiations, and Donald Trump said, listen, man, I want $2,000 checks for every American. You know what would have happened? Panic. You would have had the Democrats agree with Trump, even though they like to disagree with him on everything. On this one, they would have agreed with him. And then you would have had Hawley would have backed whatever Trump was calling for. And then there would have been pressure. I guarantee you at least 5 to 10 other Republicans would have said, I back what the president's doing. Why? Because again, if they buck him, they fear his ire. So imagine Donald Trump, he calls for these $2,000 checks, and then some Republican speaks out against it in the Senate. T-minus 2 hours before this guy has a tweet out with that guy's exact name, calls him a rhino, says don't donate to him, don't vote for him. And they know that that's devastating. Guys, they still want Trump to campaign for Loeffler and Perdue in Georgia, even though he just lost the election and he lost Georgia. They know he's the most popular. He's the best they got. So you can't buck the big man. You can't do it, or it's career suicide. And this is what I mean when I said this guy really had the opportunity to bring about some political realignments, but ultimately he's a cuck. And that's the sad part, is that so his instinct was like $2,000 checks for people. And then as soon as his aides were like, don't do that, it's not a good idea, he was like, okay, right, it's not a good idea, I'm not going to do that. This is the exact same thing that happened with foreign policy, right? We're going to get out of Iraq. We're going to get out of Afghanistan. It's going to be tremendous. We're going to rebuild our home, America first. And then you have some people behind the scenes. Probably a general wearing a suit, right? Or not a suit, wearing the uniform, walking in and telling Trump, Mr. President, that's not a good idea for reasons X, Y, and Z. He's like, you know what? You're right. You look straight out of central casting. I agree. It probably is not a good idea to get out of there. I'm going to rethink this one. That's what I'm going to do. So he'll say his instinct will be get out of the war, and then he'll be talked into staying in the war. Now he split the difference. He's going to leave a couple thousand troops in the Middle East, which is still not a withdrawal. That's the same shit Obama did. And the troop levels were eventually pushed right back up. Okay? Not enough. He did it with that. Now he's doing it with stimulus checks. All it took was his aides to tell him, oh, no, Mr. President, you can't do that. That would blow up negotiations. He's like, you're right, I'm not going to do that. When if he chimed in and he said $2,000 checks, the Democrats would already be on board with that because they were asking for roughly that anyway. And then you would add Hawley and you would have been able to chip away 5 or 10 other Republicans. House passes it. Senate passes it. It's Trump with all the Democrats and 5 to 10 Republicans. And we get a bill with $2,000 checks. And then he runs around and brags and takes credit, which I don't care as long as people get help, right? But he didn't do it. His cuck instinct really ruined him. Really ruined him. It's just so sad. We had an opportunity here. We had an opportunity because he did this with student loans, right? He's like, we're going to suspend student loan debt for X amount of time. He did it because he knew he had to do it because of COVID. He could have expanded Medicare to everybody. And what's going to happen? The Republicans are going to speak out against a Trump executive order that's giving everybody health care? Good luck, bitch. Good luck. But he very rarely, if ever, follows through on the instinct stuff, which sometimes is correct. Oh, what could have been, ladies and gentlemen, what could have been, what could have been, what could have been. And by the way, I totally believe this story because we already know that you had Trump and Mnuchin had a $1.8 trillion stimulus deal on the table that they were offering to Pelosi, and she rejected it. Now, I wonder what would have happened if Pelosi accepted it, because it was a good deal, better than the one that they're talking about now. And then it goes to McConnell, and McConnell would block it. Would Trump finally grow a pair and step up to McConnell, call him out? Because Mitch McConnell's approval rating is 21%. Donald Trump's approval rating is, 46% or something like that. You're more than double as popular as this guy. He takes on Mitch McConnell. It's a rap skis for Mitch, son. Trump's people go right for the jugular. What could have been, ladies and gentlemen, what could have been if this guy could follow through on anything or was really smart enough to know how to get his way in an intelligent, strategic way.